Let me ask you this, General. We've sent billions of dollars in money, security assistance to the Mexican government over the past 14 years. Yet we are seeing, as you just alluded to, escalating violence, even more drugs headed northward. Those drugs make their way into every state of the union, including our home state, my home state of Missouri. In your assessment, why has our security assistance to Mexico fallen so short of its security objectives? I mean, why have not we been able to achieve more, considering the prodigious sums that we've invested?
First, I would talk to Homeland Security about the problem. It's a law enforcement issue, much of it coming across the border. But I would tell you that the Mexican military, we have an incredibly close partnership, and they're doing incredible things down there. With that being said, I think, as Admiral Fowler alluded to, we need a whole-of-government strategy. You know, the arms that are arming these transnational criminal organizations come right here from the United States of America, and they flow south. In addition to that, the money that they're creating is being generated by precursors coming from Asia, China businesses and industry, if you will, that flows in there. So we have to take a broader approach to get after this, which includes a whole of government effort and prioritizing and putting resources to the problem.
Speaking of China, Admiral, let me come to you in just a little bit of time I've got remaining. You wrote in your testimony that China is seeking to establish global logistics and basing infrastructure in our hemisphere in order to project and sustain military power. What kind of presence do the Chinese forces maintain in the Western Hemisphere today that we ought to be concerned about?
We have to ask ourselves the question, why is China trying to achieve deep water ports in Dominican Republic, Jamaica, El Salvador, Panama Canal's key strategic ground, Argentina? They're using economic influence and access to set the conditions for the blue water navy that they've built.
Very good. I think we're going to have a closed session, aren't we, Mr. Chairman? So
we're planning that, yes.
Okay. I'll have a few more questions for you then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. Now let me recognize Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today and what you've done for our homeland and our hemisphere. General, it's been 20 years since we've had an attack on our homeland. Thank you for that. And everybody at Northcom, hard work that you've done. You know, I very much agree with you what you said about outpacing our competitors. I'm proud to say that in Alabama we're working to leap ahead in the areas of hypersonics, working very hard on that. And right now, the world's largest and fastest hypersonic wind tunnel is under construction in Huntsville, and I know they're working at a fast pace. Admiral enjoyed a conversation last week and enjoyed your straight talk. Hope the American people will start getting a sense of urgency. You have your hands full in Southcom, no doubt about it. Between transnational criminal organizations, Russia and China, you're a busy man. I do believe for a moment that the PRC's plan in our hemisphere are benign, and I hope that it will not take a Chinese aircraft carrier sailing between Florida and the Bahamas for Americans to wake up to the fact that the CCP wish to dominate the world stage. I hope it doesn't take something like that. You know, the work that both of you have done for Southcom and Northcom does for our nation is incredible, important to maintaining our strategic military objectives. Many of the items for both of you in the areas of responsibility strongly impact my home state in Alabama. Admiral, following the 2018 National Defense Strategy is something I personally believe in a good way to position our forces to thinking towards the future. Can you explain how Southcom is important to this strategy, and specifically, how would you describe China's strategic objectives in a 5 or 10 year timeline?
Well, I think that China seeks economic dominance globally, and their strategic objective is to be the dominant global power, unquestionably, and they'll do that in whatever way possible to ensure they have the preeminence of the Communist Party. In this hemisphere, it's across all fronts. It's not just economics. Typically, we think about that, and we have this fallacy that's just economics. It's in the military realm. They've recognized that partners in this hemisphere can't afford a lot of equipment, so they've upped the game in gifts. And when they do offer military equipment, it's often through corrupt deals that we can't compete with. They've replicated our professional military education. They have ubiquitous IT solutions. They have created engineering and cyber scholarships for military personnel that goes beyond the kind of education and training that we offer in our IMET programs. They have expanded their defense attaché presence. They have at least turned a blind eye to a range of illegal activity, unregulated fishing, unreported fishing, illegal mining and logging. And all this is done in an environment fueled by corruption, with no regard or little regard for human rights, and trying to write their version of the rules of the game. We've got to stay on the field to compete. We do that well. No one is better than the United States military, Department of Defense, but we've got to work hard and tirelessly with the sense of urgency that you mentioned to stay number one in the game and to be the best.
Thank you. General, in regards to our southern border security, we hear all the negatives. What do you think's improved the most in the last 4 years? And then what worries you most looking forward at the southern border?
I think the coordination between the department and the interagency with regards to since 2018 has been probably the biggest improvement. With regards to what worries me most is about having domain awareness and the opportunities and vulnerabilities that I already talked about in our own Western Hemisphere for state actors such as China, Russia, or Iran in our own neighborhood due to instability, due to ungoverned areas and spaces. So I'm significantly concerned about what's going on right here in our own hemisphere and neighborhood.
Do you think we need a wall?
I'll stay out of the politics of a wall. Border security.
Not politics. You think we need one?
Well, border security is national security. We need to ensure that we have policies in place, laws are enforced to ensure that Homeland Defense does not become a more strategic issue from the borders.
Yeah. One thing I noticed coaching for 40 years and being in education is just the influx of drugs. You know, just take away everybody coming across the border. It's just the influx of drugs are killing our kids. We're losing 60,000 a year to overdose. I mean, that right there should be just an alarm that we've got to have something different.
Yeah, Senator, I agree with you. Actually, I believe the number this past year was approximately 80,000. That's unsatisfactory, and we have to get after that. And that's a symptom of that broader problem that I talked about, transnational criminal organizations that we can apply priority and resources to get after it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Now let me recognize Senator Blackburn via WebEx.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We so appreciate having the hearing today and getting the update. And Admiral Fowler, thank you for the time that you spent with me on the phone last week. General Van Erck, I want to go back to your statement on Pathfinder, the prototype Pathfinder data analytics project. This is the kind of project that I think attacks two primary concerns with DoD data streams. One is the stovepiping, and the other is the need for modernization. And many times I sound like a broken record, if you will, by talking about what has happened with DoD through the years as things have become so stovepiped, and the need for this modernization, because information is power. We all know that, but you have to be able to analyze, to share, and to make actionable that data. So my question for you is, how could the Pentagon better utilize some of these emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence, such as the data that we're getting via ISR, and the AI that is used by Pathfinder to really make that information accessible, shareable across platforms and divisions, and actionable when you're looking at how you implement plans for the future, how you change plans based on the information that you are getting?
Senator, first, I would tell you I'm encouraged by the joint warfighting concept, which also has a supplement for information advantage that will help us move down this. As far as utilizing the data, I agree it's a strategic asset, if you will, data. We can utilize it to not only dominate in conflict, but to create deterrence day to day. So, for example, as an operational commander, this data that's available to me, if I utilize it with applying artificial intelligence and machine learning, and then disseminate it to key decision makers, I'm able to position forces ahead of a competitor or adversary's actions, which creates deterrence. It's that deterrence by denial. But we must go faster in the department. And 30 years ago, the department led the way with innovations. Today, I think that paradigm has flip-flopped to where much of industry and Silicon Valley is leading the way forward, especially with regard to data. And so we need to take a look at our acquisition processes, our modernization processes, and potentially flip the paradigm to stay competitive.
Do you feel like that the Pentagon itself is flexible and agile enough to make these changes, utilize this data, make a change in a game plan immediately, and apply what they're learning from that intel?
I believe that the Pentagon has proven over history to be incredibly successful in adapting when we need to. It hasn't always been as fast, and that's one of the reasons I talk about it. We have to have some culture change. I would also tell you this may require some looks at policy. It may even require some looks at law to utilize data differently as we go forward. What we don't want to do is create capabilities that we can utilize, and the policy that we have and the laws that we have don't allow us to be successful with the data and the information that's available.
Thank you for that. I may come back to you for some specifics. Admiral Fowler, we've talked a lot about China this morning and the transnational organizations, but as you look at dealing with China, whether it is through fentanyl and drugs or Belt and Road or great power competition, what do you not have access to in Southcom that you need?
Well, as we've discussed, China is a global threat, and we've got to address that challenge holistically across the U.S. government. In the Southcom AOR, we have to be appropriately postured. So we need the right footprint of forces working with our embassies and our interagency team to stay engaged with our partner. So additional locations for presence, not permanent, but access is really critical moving forward.
So it's the teamwork concept with our allies, correct?
Correct, Senator.
Okay. Thank you all for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator, very much. And gentlemen, thank you for your testimony and your service to the nation. Let me remind my colleagues that upon adjournment, we will immediately move to SVC 217 for a classified briefing by Admiral Fowler about increasing Chinese influence in the Southcom area. There also is a vote scheduled for noon. So we will accomplish both. I'll see you shortly over there, Admiral Fowler. And General, thank you for your distinguished service at Northcom. No further business before the committee. I'll adjourn.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.